So Charizard, I feel like he's the big boy.
Mm-hmm.
I I remember saying to you as we were putting the idea of this podcast together, I was like, Charizard is like the big hitter as far as I'm concerned. Like second only to Pikachu. Um, I,
Yeah.
and like the fact that he comes like so early on, I was like, oh, like this is the episode that I think has potentially got a whole bunch of eyes on it.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you have any memories or attachments to Charizard?
I mean, obviously, all of my Charlie Charmanders evolved into big, rough, tough Charlie Charizards. I remember I have had quite a lot of memories of Charizard actually. So I remember um quite successfully just slashing and flamethrowing my way through literally everything and not really bothering to raise any other Pokemon because my Charizard could literally fuck everything up. Um, Quite a few playthroughs as a child. Um, I remember one time in a run, I must have got a Charizard with just shite stats because it missed constantly. And I ended up like keeping it with me because I was quite sentimental and I didn't want to put it in the PC because it was my starter. But I really used a Doug Trio as my main Pokemon more than my Charizard. And that was like the first time playing as a child that my starter Pokemon wasn't my highest level Pokemon, which was pretty cool. I did, I did as a kid have a team of Charizard and Pikachu, basically trying to do not Ash's team because I couldn't get the other starters on Red and Blue, but I had the Charizard and the Pikachu as like my two main at one point. And I also felt like the one Charizard I had where I ended up using a Dog Trio more. I quite enjoyed, not enjoyed, but like it was a bit shit. And I felt like it was a little bit like the Charizard in the show. It wasn't, it just like missed a lot. And I think I must have just thought it was being I definitely projected onto it a little bit. But it was I remember that vividly. I remember how angry I was that my Charizard was just not good. Um compared to other Charizards I'd had before. I remember not understanding how the move fissure worked. Um, one time playing with a Charizard and thinking, "Oh, this is a cool and different move," and then I didn't know how to use it properly. So when I went to use it, I was like, "Why the fuck does it not?" um why is it not working? Like why is it so crap? And it just turned out I wasn't using it properly. And I was just using it against Pokemon that it had no effect on. Um and it was very specifically designed to be like used as part of a strategy where my strategy was still very much just like throw throw all the power I can out of it. Um,
Hmm?
yeah, like yeah, it was um not I was not the best Pokemon trainer as a child, to be honest with you. And my overuse of over-leveled Charizards very much exemplifies exactly how.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think I'm somewhat similar in that like I seem to recall having a Charizard, and I would have had flamethrower on it. I would have had fire blast on it. I would have had
Hmm.
like like in my head. I was like, why wouldn't I have this have just all fire moves? And now I changed that up, but like that was kind of my mindset. I didn't see the point of you know stat type moves that you know changing anything like that other than poison or burn. Like I don't see the point of that. And even then, like what's the point of putting those on when you can actually use something else that's going to end up inflicting damage and giving a burn or giving poison. So, um,
Yeah.
and I think I've been in that same situation where I've had a Pokemon that I've been just like, you're not very good, and it pains me to take you out of the team, but I'm gonna have to. I seem to recall my Snivy um, being like, I think I mentioned it in the last one maybe, where Snivy's like one of the few starters that I've ever like regretted picking, and I think that's partly
Mm.
partly because I thought that the design was a bit lame. I didn't like the fact that they like lost their limbs, but
Yeah.
I wanted them to turn into like a big dragon versus like become like a snooty snake. But also, like, I didn't see the point of I like I don't think it had very good stats because I'd just be battling with it and I'm like, you are pointless. Just get off my team now. Um, um, but so with me with Charizard again, my big connection is the trading card game. So the Charizard in the trading card game, 120 HP, which for years was tied top for highest HP in the game, um, with Chansey. That was the other one that had
Ooh.
120 HP. Um, but it had like a really cool design. It's like it doesn't look like how the normal how the normal um, like Charizard design does now. Um, I'll see if I can just dead quickly get an image of it up. But like it looks like this was kind of come up with before they got the like before they got all the dimensions down, and this is exactly how Charizard should look now. Okay, so I'm
Yeah.
just gonna get it up dead quick, just to show you, because I don't know if you've seen it or not. I don't know how au fait with the game you are, but
No, definitely not as much as you. A little bit.
um,
I remember as a kid being very jealous of my friend who had a dark Charizard because that was a really cool looking card. Really cool looking card.
there we go. So I'm trying to. So there it is there. So you can like see it's kind of like drop down,
Mm.
and it's like it's in the middle of a fire blast. This is actually the so you can see this little two here that's like in the bottom right of its like image. But that's the original base set Charizard, and I feel like it would be very rare for you to see a Charizard that looked like that these days.
Yeah, I
Just
definitely get that.
um, so yeah, I really like that. He's like super rare. I want to say he's like 3 out of 102. There's 102 in the
Hmm.
base set, and he's number 3, and the numbers go alphabetically. Um, and I think only like Alakazam and like maybe Blastoise is rarer, but it feels like more people had Blastoises, or
Mm.
were more willing to trade them back then because Blastoise doesn't have quite as high of like a HP. I think Blastoise is, I want to say, 100. Um, but so that's my big connection. Plus the anime, where
Hmm.
I think the fact that Charizard has this big redemption arc.
Mm.
I want to say the redemption arc comes in the beginning of the Orange Islands,
Yeah.
when that begins to start. But yeah, like them doing them falling asleep during the Indigo Plateau. Um,
Yeah. Like I feel like that's a really profound and exciting moment because you followed Ash for the entire series, the entire journey. You're at a point where he's close to winning. He's close to getting everything he's ever dreamed of. And then, and Charizard, you think Charizard's coming through to fight to fight the other Charizard. And then just gives up because it sees the Pikachu as beneath it. And I feel like that was such a good way for Ash to lose
Mm,
because the whole time that Charizard had disrespected him, he had he had never acknowledged the flaws that Charizard saw in him. He had just kept on doing what he was already doing and hoping that Charizard changed its mind, and Charizard never did.
mm,
Um, and it was in that moment that he was like, "Oh, I've got to be better. I I am incapable of achieving my dreams as long as my Charizard feels this way about me, as long as I am not making the effort to find out what the problem really is and resolve it." Um, and I think that's like a really big, important, like learning moment. And it also, like, it makes more sense for why Ash would lose than, you know, that guy who just happened to have three legendaries or whatever it was,
mm.
and whipped the shit out of him. And it's just like, okay, so that doesn't make sense as much as, but the Charizard was an ongoing narrative. It continued to develop and it continued to get depth. And then by the end of it, like when it all gets thrown back in Ash's face at the worst possible moment for him, I think it was a big narrative reward.
Yeah, and I think when you have that as a big key moment within the story, um, for them to then be able to carry on past that journey, I think is only a reward for the viewers for keeping up with it. Like, I mean, some people would say, I mean, we were making a little bit of reference to it before about like, like why not just cut your losses there and just like bin Charizard off your team, but
Mm,
like he keeps at it, which I think endears you to Ash and also enables for you to endear yourself to Charizard, but like more of like a long term thing.
yeah. And like I think Ash's relationship with Charizard does have some of those moments where you see a lot of Ash's humanity. Like one that I remember really vividly to this day is one where like Charizard gets really sick, and gets really cold. It gets like coated in ice or something.
Yeah,
Um,
against a
and
Poliwrath.
yeah, and then it's like they're like curled up on the beach, and like Ash and all the other Pokemon are like trying to keep Charizard warm, and they're like rubbing it and wrapping it in blankets, and you see like the flame on its tail flicker like it's gonna go out. And that's like, I guess because they've had that threat of something happening to its flame hanging over its head since the day you meet Charmander, and like I think that's another like a callback that really pays off because you see Ash going out of his way to protect Charizard in a way that the original trainer didn't for Charmander. And you see, even though like Charizard and Ash don't become best friends after that, you see Charizard appreciate the way
Mm,
Ash treats it. Um, and even though there's still like a, well, you need to be a better trainer in order to train me sort of attitude, um, Charizard just sort of gives Ash a bit of a break after that, a bit
yeah,
more leeway. Yeah. Like there's a bit of affection in there, even if Ash still has a way to go to earn its respect the whole way. And I liked that like slow, gradual process um of their relationship rebuilding. And um I liked, those episodes where you see, I guess, like the feelings, because as
mm,
much as the battles and the strategy and all that is fun, the ones that are about like the characters and their like interactions and their connections, I think those are the ones that like stay with me. Like similarly, like the one where they get trapped in the mountain and Ash is like, well, I'm going to freeze to death, but you go in your Pokeballs where you be warm, and all of his Pokemon insist on like cuddling him to
mm,
share body heat. And it's like those, like I still fucking cry at that one when
mm,
it comes on. Like I was rewatching some of the bit where he's got any of his starter Pokemon apart from Pikachu yet. I was rewatching some of the first season the other day with a friend. Um, and like my eyes started watering because like I held my tea too close to my face and I like got a bunch of steam in my eyes.
Is that
And
the
my friend was like,
excuse you're going with?
no, it literally was because it was like it was like the Metapod episode, and I was like, yeah, I promise I'm not crying at Pokemon. And then I was like, well, not this episode anyway. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you, man. I will cry.
Yeah. I always cry, and I always think it's like I always think I'm like so lame for crying. It's in the Pokemon First movie
Oh
where
yeah, when
where
Pikachu cries.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
but like whenever I like describe it to someone who's like not into Pokemon, I'll be like. I'll be like, yeah, that's like one of the scenes that makes me cry. And they'll be like, and what happens? And I go, well, he turns into stone, and all the
Like,
Pokemon start crying, and their tears bring him back to life. And they'll be like,
yeah.
that's ridiculous. And I'll be like,
If
oh,
you
I just,
don't cry when Pikachu is crying, you have a heart of stone.
I think for me, it starts when the clone Pikachu is like slapping him, and he won't hit him back.
Mm.
Like I just choked up a little bit then just thinking about it. So oh, and I think one other thing that like really jumped out at me that that like connects me to Charizard is so he plays like a seminal moment in the third movie um, with Entei,
Mm-hmm.
and this was a point where I kind of noticed that I was dropping off a little bit from Pokemon. Like I knew I was dropping off a little bit around about Ruby Sapphire time anyway. Um,
Yeah.
like I think part of the problem is that like and I understand why they did it because now I know more about like Pokemon, like the Pokemon game development. In that I
Yeah.
believe they like I don't know very much about it, but like the EVs and IVs and all that kind of stuff. Um, they had to like change up between the second and third generation when they went to Game Boy Advance, and I think in doing that they then made Ruby and Sapphire quite similar to what we'd seen before. I think in order to make the crossover a little bit easier, but I didn't know that at the time. So for me, it almost felt like a retread. So I kind of felt myself like lose a little bit of steam with it at that point.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I get that.
yeah, but the thing that really highlighted it for me was that so there's a scene in the film where Charizard is living in like Charizard Valley and comes and
Mm-hmm.
like helps out Ash, and I didn't know that Charizard had like gone off to like live in a commune at that point, and I was like,
Did you not?
no, so. But I accepted it. I didn't really question it. I was like, "Oh, that must have happened." But it made me go, "I must be starting to kind of fall behind with what's going on in the TV show now."
See, I really remember Charizard leaving, and it's one of the episodes that makes me cry. Because like Ash and Charizard had like just got their relationship back on track. Like they were working well as a team. And then they come across Charizard Valley, and Ash's Charizard starts like picking fights with the other Charizards, and it keeps losing. And the woman running it is going like is saying to him like, "Oh, your Charizard is fine, but it's really weak compared to other Charizards. Like it's fine on your team. It's one of the most powerful Pokemon on your team. But if you look at like the Charizards that live in the mountains and they live these rough lives and they battle other Charizards on a daily basis to improve, like your Charizard is not getting that experience and it is not learning like how to Charizard in the same way." Um, and like there's this like really like difficult bit where they all acknowledge that Charizard would be better off with its own kind learning how to grow the way it needs to in order to fulfill its potential. And the reason it's been so frustrated has been because Ash hasn't been providing that. Um, and then when I remember it so vividly, at the end of the episode, you can see that Charizard kind of wants to stay with Ash because they finally like reconnected. But Ash knows that Charizard is better off in Charizard Valley, and so he just doesn't give Charizard the choice. He's like, "No, you're gonna stay here and like it's one of those like if I say I want you to come with me, but it's best for you to stay here, they won't listen. So like Ash is like, I have to be a dick so that you don't want to be
Mm,
around me. And Ash goes, no, stay here. Who wants a weak Charizard anyway?
mm.
Um, and Charizard gets angry and leaves. And then Ash turns and runs away from Charizard Valley. And the end of the episode ends with like a shot of his hat pulled down over his face because he's gonna miss Charizard so much.
Ah.
And like I still cry at that. And I'm like, I know it was best of each other so much. Ah.
um, so presumably you like it when he turns up and does like some like little cameos then.
I do. I think I like it when all of the Pokemon that Ash leaves behind have cameos. Like I really want to see like, Butterfree raising a family of little Caterpie, with his pink girlfriend. And I want to see like Pidgeot taking care of the Pokemon in the forest and things like that. Like I want all of Ash's Pokemon to like be revisited
Mm,
and like you see them living their lives and you see like the things they left to do. I want to see Primeape
mm.
come back, a fucking champion. Like there are so many, and I definitely remember the first generation ones more than the rest,
Mm.
if I'm honest. Maybe the second and third generation I also watched because I was at an age where I could watch it religiously. Um, but like when we get to other generations, I'm gonna need to revisit it to
Oh,
know what the fuck I'm talking about.
oh,
But no, Charizard leaving was a fucking heartbreaker because like with like Pidgeot and with Primeape, it was like I'm really proud of you. Like go and do. You found somewhere where you can, you know, be doing what you want to do. And I've raised you this far. I've prepared you to do this. You go and do that. But Butterfree and Charizard, when they left, made me cry.
well, I mean, the ones that jump out at me as making me cry. Like I say, I cry a whole bunch during the first movie. Um, I get the feeling I'm going to cry at Team Rocket breaking up. I get
Mm,
I cry at the where James leaves his Growlithe behind.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a pretty sad one.
T Tell you what makes me cry as well. The episode with in the Orange Islands where Meowth gets worshipped as a god, and they have like a ritual and a festival, um, where Meowth has to use Payday, but because Meowth learned English, he can't use any
Mm,
moves, so he doesn't learn pay. Doesn't have Payday. So Jesse and James, who were originally just like, yeah, go on, fuck off and be a god. You don't want to be with us. No, no, no. They throw all of their money
mm,
into the town so that the people can scoop it up. And they run out of money, and James throws his lucky bottle caps.
yeah.
And Meowth sees the bottle cap and he's like, this was them. And he gives up being a god to go back and be with them after they were like, look, let's just throw all this money, throw away our lucky bottle caps, let Meowth be a god, and we'll let him live where he will be worshipped because he will be happy. And they've accepted that he's not coming with them, and they make this big sacrifice for him. And he's like, "No, I don't. I want my friends." And he goes running after them, and like that makes me cry. I'm such a fucking pussy, man. I cry at everything.
Mate, I do that. I've got a thing where there's certain films that I'll be like, that's got a sad ending. I
Mm,
can't watch it. Like I've never watched Green Mile because I know that it's gonna do me in. Um, but another Meowth one that makes me cry is the one where you find out how he learned how to speak to impress a female Meowth.
Meowsy.
Yeah. Oh, is that their
That
name?
bitch. That bitch Meowsy.
Yeah. uh,
Oh, I can't wait for the Meowth episode. I'm gonna be so mad about this Meowth that was mean to Meow.
uh, So there you go. If that's not more reason to get yourself following and subscribing, I do not know what is to hear us in around about 52 episodes, or however many it is, being like, what a bitch. What an absolute bitch.
I'm gonna bring him a wine for that one, and I'm just gonna get like drunk and angry and talk about what a bitch Meowsy was, and then then I'll have to talk about Persian afterwards, and I'll be dead. I'll be a bottle deep, like, oh, it's a kitty cat.
You'll be like, was Giovanni that bad? You know, God loves a trier.
But Charizard.
Yes, Charizard. Well, should we have a look at his Dex entries?
Let's do that.
Let's do that. When it loads up, one moment.
I feel like the Charizard Pokedex entries are like the first ones that get like silly. Because I mean, admittedly, we're very early on, but like a lot of them do make quite outrageous claims about what Pokemon are capable of, and Charizard is the first one with like measurable claims that feel like they're a lot.
Well, I mean, I either mentioned this one today or on the podcast that I did earlier this week. That this top one here about Spitfire that is hot enough to melt boulders. That's like one of the Pokedex entries that I really like. I really remember like that one. Like if you were to ask me like, oh, is there like any Pokedex entries or any facts about Charizard that you know off the top of your head, I could have told you that that apparently he can melt boulders. Which
I've got the page open in front of me, and there are a lot of claims here. Like Spitfire hot enough to melt boulders, and then at Stadium can quickly melt glaciers weighing 10,000 tons. That's very specific. How many glaciers did they have weighing 10,000 tons, and they timed a Charizard doing it? And then actually, I love the one for Crystal. It uses its wings to fly high. Like, well, duh, that's what wings are for. But then further down, we can go back and go through them properly in a bit. But like, this is just another one that just feels like an outrageous claim. Emerald, it breathes intense flames that can melt any material. That's a lot. I do like the addition, however, it will never torture a weaker foe. That's cute. That shows that Charizard is a noble creature. And then, literally the next one, its wings can carry this Pokemon close to an altitude of 4,600 feet. That's very high. That's very high.
Indeed it is.
And that's very high and very specific. So I feel like some people are looking at some very impressive Charizards for sure, but they're also like being weird about measuring it very specifically, or they're just making shit up. So they're just like guessing that's about. And also but I do appreciate that my preliminary glance implies that these Pokedex entries are going to be fairly varied. It's not just like it's got a fire on its tail.
Yeah.
It is leaning into different elements and facets of Charizard's, physiognomy.
Yeah.
That was the word. And character.
Mate, me and you are not Professor Oak. We don't need to know these words. Well, I mean, my first thought, right, and I think this is the most varied one that we've had so far, and I think part of that is again because they know that that Charizard is very very popular. So I think if you were to get a Charizard, there's probably a higher chance than likely than like with the other Pokemon that a kid might end up wanting to read this and read something cool about Charizard. I mean, my first thought though when we got this page up was it spits fire, which to me makes him sound like a rapper.
Mm.
Yeah,
Like some Charizard spit fire and some spit bars.
yeah, but all of them are hot enough to melt boulders.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes.
okay, so we've got in yellow. When expelling a blast of super hot fire, the red flame at the tip of its tail burns more intensely. Which, like, that was probably the first like Pokemon game for like a lot of crossover people, and I think that's the worst Pokedex entry that we've read so far.
Yeah, like that honestly doesn't tell us anything new since Charmander.
Yeah, it's just 5 o'clock on a Friday. We need you to stick in Charizard's entry. Oh, fucking tails on fire, right? Pub. Okay, so we've got gold. If Charizard becomes furious, the flame on the tip of its tail flares up into a whitish blue colour. They've basically ripped off Charmeleon there.
Yeah.
Lazy...
That was a Charmeleon one. They put the word Charizard in.
Yeah.
But like Silver, the same generation, they actually wrote something new. Breathing intense hot flames, it can melt almost anything. So in Emerald, it definitely can melt any material, but Silver, almost anything. Its breath inflicts terrible pain on enemies. I love, like, I realize it means when it's doing like flamethrower, but like, there's a bit of me that's just like, it breathes fire and separately has like some stanky ass breath.
I was thinking that. I thought, are they saying that he's got halitosis?
Yeah. Just like Charizard needs to invest in some Listerine.
Just like, could you? Oh, do you know what? Yeah, Charizard, you can. I'll tell him that you can melt anything so long as you fucking have this polo, please.
I am gonna keep looking at Crystal though. It uses its wings to fly high. Like, what the fuck else was it gonna use them for, dude?
Well,
like, come on, man.
Just look swish, mate.
Yeah, it's just Charizard's wings are purely decorative. That a Charizard cannot fly.
Well, I mean, to be fair, I mean we were mentioning it before. Charizard is a big boy. If it turned out that it was like this Charizard is so big it cannot fly, I'd be like, fair dues.
Yeah. He's a big chunky boy.
We've got Charizard flies around in the sky in search of powerful opponents. It breathes fire of such great heat that it melts anything. However, it never turns its fiery breath on any opponent weaker than itself.
That's very detailed. And also, I think that might be my favourite Pokedex entry we've seen, because like it tells you about Charizard's like habits, it tells you about its strength, and it also tells you about its character. Like that is very thorough.
I like the bit at the end, the final sentence, which I think was come up with when I reckon a professor got burnt by a Charizard. And they were like, yeah, you got burnt by that Charizard. And he was like, yeah, well, do you know what? It never turns its fiery breath on an opponent weaker than itself. So what does that tell you, Neil?
It sees me as a threat and an equal. Actually, I also feel like this does tie into the show with Ash's Charizard, seeing the Pikachu as being beneath it, and it's just like here it's presenting it as noble, where before Charizard came across as like arrogant.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that's interesting. And it yeah, I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah. How high up is 46,000 feet?
I don't know. Is it okay?
Feels pretty high. Like, is that higher than a jet goes? I'm guessing not. Why did they pick 46,000 feet? It said that Charizard fire burns hotter if it has experienced harsh battles. So again, that feels like that's kind of linked into the like the training and all that kind of stuff around like Charizard Valley. Maybe that got written around about that time. Is Charizard Valley around about Generation 3? Like Ruby Sapphire kind of time? It must be.
Yeah.
Yeah, it must be because it's in the third movie, which got Entei in it. So, or is it? No, no. Entei is a second generation Pokemon, aren't they? I don't know. I just wondered if that was based on that. And then it starts to they start to repeat then, don't they? Um,
Yeah. So yeah, um Charizard was with Ash up until Johto. Um uh but then moved to Characific Valley there. Um but yeah,
yeah,
made cameos later on. He was still Ash's Charizard.
yeah,
But yeah, midway through like the second season, uh, is when he leaves.
yeah. I tell you what, I am surprised at. So like you can see here, this Pokemon has no Pokedex entries in Generation 9, which that's like Violet and Scarlet, isn't it?
Yeah.
So does that mean that Charizard's not in Violet and Scarlet yet?
I don't know.
I mean,
I haven't got one.
I
I
mean,
think it was in a raid. I think you could get it in a raid, but
well,
you can't get it in like in the wild. It was like a special event Pokemon.
mm,
Let me find out. Uh,
'cause it feels odd that it doesn't have a Pokedex
oh no,
entry.
it wasn't. It was not. Um, all right, yeah, no, it was a special distribution in Scarlet and Violet, but I did not get one.
So that feels
Boo.
odd. That feels odd that there's no Pokedex entry for it. Maybe it's just not on that website, but it feels like that's the kind of
Yeah,
that feels like the kind of website where like the fans are so passionate. Like I couldn't imagine that having a
yeah.
Pokedex entry and it not being in there. But it mentioned Gigantamax Charizard, which I think brings us on to like the next thing.
Like alternate forms.
Yeah, and like Venusaur's got an alternative form, but I don't think that Venusaur's alternative forms are that. It was so unimpressive that I didn't even really consider it.
Yeah. It just looks like a bigger Venusaur. And like I think Charizard's alternate forms are definitely more interesting. Like there's one that looks more like pointy dragony, one that looks like a bit like the Dark Charizard card, and the flames go blue, so it leans into those many, many years of Pokedex entries. Um and Gigantamax Charizard actually looks like a fucking beast. Like it looks scary.
Um, I was just gonna get so that there is X and Y, and yeah, I mean I think that I want to say it's Y that's the black one with the blue wings, which I think I would have been happy with just that one. Like I think that looks, I think it looks pretty.
Charizard X is the black one with the blue wings, and Charizard Y is the pointy one. Like in that picture, which is like some fan art, Charizard Y doesn't look that much different. If you look at the sort of like official artwork, it's a lot more like angular compared to regular Charizard, and it's got um and those like I don't know extra bits of hand and spikes down its tail look a bit more vicious. Um, but yeah, I think Mega Charizard X looks dope. I think Mega Charizard Y looks fine. And I think Gigantamax Charizard looks exactly like what a Gigantamax should look like. Like it looks like a proper um like the Godzilla version
Oh yeah,
of Charizard.
yeah. I've just popped it in, and yeah, like they've seemed to have kind of lent into that, because that's one of the things about Charizard, like that I don't think quite comes across. I think it's a bit funny that that like Charizard's only like 5'4". Like when you see the pictures of like, and this is Charizard's scale, but like
Yeah.
Gigantamax Charizard Ah,
Gigantamax Charizard is apparent. So Charizard's canon height is 5'7", right? Which means it's shorter than many human beings. And I guess makes Ash about 3 foot tall. Um, but Mega Charizard, not Mega, Gigantamax Charizard is 91'10", apparently. So that's just so huge. And I know they're like Gigantamax, that's the point. But like that is enormous.
but my question is, how large would a Gigantamax human be? Is Gigantamax Charizard still smaller than most Gigantamax humans?
I wish I could tell you, my love, because that sounds like a very interesting question.
Well, okay. Well, whilst we hopefully get the answer to that in the chat, which I don't think will happen because no one knows. Should we have a look at the Smogon for Charizard, which
Yeah.
I'm guessing is going to be absolutely like. I'm guessing
Yeah.
this is going to be pretty high, pretty decent. Um,
Yeah, it's going to be everyone uses Charizard. Everyone like overuses Charizard. Like we know. We know.
So here we go. We've got it up here, and Charizard falls under a tier called PUBL, which stands for PU Black Band List, which would appear to be so band list for not a playable tier. So that must be because it's kind of overused, as it were, or overseen. Um, but in terms of, you can see there with Mega Y is in OU, which stands for overused, and Mega X, which is also overused.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing that if you didn't have Mega X or Mega Y, that would have changed Charizard's status to overused themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. I get that.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And like you can see here as well, like there's like two different like options that you can go for.
Yeah.
There's like, unlike with Charmeleon, there's like overview and like various different types of abilities and different like play styles. So yeah, he's pretty popular, isn't he, Charizard?
Yeah. It's got enough of a like move set, like a varied enough move pool, that you can do different things with it, which is pretty cool.
Mm.
Um,
Um,
yeah.
so we've seen what the competitive scene rates him. What are we giving him for a Trubbish rating?
I think I'm gonna give him a 9 because I think Charizard has a really, really memorable story arc and is fun to play with. And I think that, and I like the lore around Charizard with its like varied and versatile Pokedex entries. And I think, it is overused. You see a lot of it. It become very much like a franchise mascot in a way.
Mm.
But I get why. I get why. I can't complain about it really.
Um, I'm gonna give it the same. I'm gonna give it a 9, which is the I want to say the highest Trubbish rating that we've given on the channel. You giving a 9 and me
Yeah,
giving a 9.
giving him a 9.
Um, is it possible to get 10? I do not know.
I don't know. I don't know. We'll see.
I mean,
We'll see how we go.
I've already had one that's flashed in there that could potentially get a 10.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Do I get to know, or do I have to wait and find out until you give a Pokemon a 10?
Well, let's see if I
Tell
if I
me
change my mind.
if you want to tell me, do it after the stream.
Oh,
And then it'll still be a surprise for some people, even if you tell me.
okay. No. Well,
People
I,
have to tune in to find out which
indeed you
one's.
will. In 140 or so episodes time. Um,
Okay.
um, Okie doke. So, oh, do you have any spicy takes on Charizard before we draw it to a close?
I think I've said all my spicy takes. Like I think like it's a little bit overdone, but I don't mind because I get why. Um, I really liked its narrative. I would have liked to have seen more of that nuance, either in Charizard or in other Pokemon, other of Ash's relationships and connections with the people and Pokemon around him. Um, yeah, that's it. That's my overview.
Yeah.
Not spicy, I don't think.
Well, my take on them is it's more of a theory, I suppose. I think so. They're famously fire flying, and sometimes you'll
Mm-hmm.
see memes that are like Swablu, dragon, Charizard,
Yeah.
not a dragon, right? But I think I want to say that this is correct, right? I believe the typing came in later in development where they started to give the Pokemon typings. Um,
Yeah.
and I wouldn't be surprised if Charizard started off as Fire Dragon and actually had it removed because of how overpowered Dragon is, particularly in the first generation.
Yeah, and I feel like Dragon is a very overpowered type, and also I feel like they didn't want to give that to a starter.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
definitely.
you pair it up with otherwise it just makes Charizard so overpowered, and Charizard is quite overpowered already. Like if you pair it up with something that like is an advantage, but not such a massive advantage that like the strongest trainer in the world is known for using that type, you
Mm,
know?
yeah,
Um, and like I feel like the if you can only be two types, like there are some Pokemon that fit multiple types. Like every Pokemon could be fighting type because they all fight.
mm,
You know, every Pokemon could be normal type because like why not? It's just normal. What does normal even mean?
yeah,
Like I feel um like don't don't take it so let Charizard not be a dragon. It's okay.
mm,
Like it's fine. It's not a big deal.
yeah,
It does fit fire and it does fit flying. It could equally also fit like normal if you wanted it to. It could fit fighting if you wanted it to. It could do a lot of things.
yeah,
If people just relax.
yeah. And I think it would have majorly imbalanced it as well to have like it would have been like, yes, I know that you are gonna struggle a little bit to have Charmander in the first two gyms, but if you like tough it out once it hits level 36 or whatever it is specifically for Charizard, I think it's 36. Once you hit 36, you end up with a fire dragon type. Like there'd have been
Yeah.
no point in picking the other two at that point.
And like if you picked Bulbasaur specifically and your rival had Charizard, like it would really undermine that as well because you need to beat your rival. Is Charizard this overpowered thing or not?
Mm,
Like I guess maybe it would make the rival battles just really bloody hard. Who knows?
yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Well, let's draw it to a close there. So